It's time now for this week's edition of Voices of the Region. Each week we hear from a journalist in the area about the stories they are covering. This week, columnist and author Aaron Brown from northern Itasca County is our guest.
You know, the global economy has driven down prices for a lot of goods that we've come to expect. Clothing and food are much smaller parts of the budget, a family's budget, than they were, say, 100 years ago or 80 years ago. Your grandparents and great grandparents paid more out of their paycheck for shoes, for instance, than we do. But the downside, of course, we've watched as a lot of jobs have gone overseas. But the flip side too is that whenever there's a disruption, and it could be a typhoon, it could be a political unrest in a certain part of a certain country, or it could even be something that they've been experiencing, which is a shortage of shipping containers, those big metal boxes that they put on the ships to go from China to San Francisco or Seattle, for instance. The shortage of those is enough to throw off supplies of plastic components. What I wrote about was the notion of maybe having to rebuild supply lines domestically, including manufacturing lines, making things that maybe we haven't made as prolifically in a while. And with that will come some new challenges for consumers in the form of prices. We might have to pay more for something that's produced closer to where we live, but there are side benefits of that as well, including jobs in the economy. I can't believe how high the spot price of iron ore has hit this summer. At times it's been over $200. Keep in mind that when the iron ore mines here close or go into shutdown, the prices are often down around $50 or even $40 is really low, and that might cause a dip. So just imagine how much higher those prices are now, well above the cost of production for iron ore. So that's the good news. The bad news is something that I noticed happened just this last week. There was a disruption of sorts in the Chinese financial sector. The Chinese government, run by the Chinese Communist Party, decided to rein in some of the private capital funds that exist in China. They've been going through a complex process of they're a communist government, but they've been opening up some of their markets a little bit to be competitive in a capitalist world. And the government backed off that a little bit, and it really disrupted markets. It was purely a supply and demand issue. Now it's supply and demand and also market influence of foreign governments. And it's not all within the control of our own consumers anymore. And that's a cautionary realization. Once you realize that, we have to be able to navigate a world that we have less control over. And that will be a challenge. It's been a challenge for our country on many levels. I took a side, so this is bias, of course. I took the side of a certain long-snouted crocodile from the Cretaceous period. Terminoris robusta is its scientific name. At one time, it was Terminoris massabis, or it had the name of the Mesabi Iron Range in it, because when it was discovered at the Hill Annex mine in Calumet on the western Mesabi Iron Range back in the 40s, quite some time ago, it was believed to be a new species. And so it was actually named for the Mesabi Iron Range. Now, the scientific community, as it does, evaluates these things and compares it. And it's currently believed that maybe it was actually an example of the Terminoris robusta, this other species. Anyway, doesn't matter. This crocodile lived on the range. Granted, it was separated by tens of millions of years. So there's this competition with the Minnesota Science Museum. They want to nominate a fossil to be our state fossil. So the legislature would have to get involved, and they're having an online vote. I think there are 9 fossils from different parts of the state discovered in different parts of the state. Our Iron Range crocodile is, I don't believe, leading currently. It was actually lagging behind some other fossils. But you want to check it out because there's some really cool fossils. And even if our crocodile doesn't make it through, There's some really cool fossils that really reflect the very prehistoric ancient history of life here in northern Minnesota.